Don't let anybody fool you. Don't let those Arsenal fans fool you. We are AFC Bournemouth, not Bournemouth. So
Hey, let's go. Let's go. Oh, hey. Welcome to the end of season report. I am Crunk Chocolate. EOSR is a part of Shades of Blue content season, bringing you an episode every other day throughout the summer. Where other podcasts go on holiday or vacation, we continue to bring a wave of content for you here at Shades of Blue. The end of season report is where I bring a correspondent for each club in the Premier League and talk about the 2023-24 campaign. There are 5 categories: kits, manager, squad, supporters, and season. Each category will be graded on the American grading scale, and naturally, we will dissect the reasons for the rating. Sounds easy enough, no? Today's guest. Time to sink our teeth into some cherries. To discuss Bournemouth, I have a first-time guest, Shady Gang. I have reached out to multiple well-known Bournemouth media establishments, and each one too difficult to get a hold of. I didn't understand it. But when I was in my darkest moment, a friend recommended me to our guest. I took it as a sign because I used to live in a city called Devonport. Shady Gang, give it up for our Bournemouth correspondent, Ross Devonport.
thank you, Frank. Thank you. Happy to be here.
How's it going? How are you?
I'm very well. Kind of getting over that hangover now. Starts of the season just being finished, and obviously we almost got that top 10 that I think everybody wanted. Fell a little bit short. Thanks to Palace for that, and Chelsea a little bit too. But obviously, our most ever points we've ever accumulated in the Premier League. So a great season for all AFC Bournemouth fans, I would think.
For real? That's exciting. Congratulations, for real. That's good. Yeah, that's what football is all about. It's about progress. It's about working it, and it's one of those things I didn't know what I guess the ceiling was for Bournemouth this season, and it sounds like you guys smashed it. So that's good.
Yeah, no, listen, we brought in a new manager, got rid of a manager that had kept us up last year. Yes. We can get to all that in a little bit, but yeah, no, I think everything went about as well as anybody could have expected.
Well, let's get started with knowing a little bit more about you, Ross. Yes. Introduce yourself a little, and let us know, just a little bit about yourself.
I'm originally from northwest side of London, a place called Harrow, Middlesex, right at the end of the Underground. For those of you who have ever been to London, the end of the Jubilee line. I moved here to Boca Raton, Florida in 1992, a long time ago now. I've been a Bournemouth fan for 37 years-ish, about 87, I think, was the first game I went to. The reason my local teams, I'm surrounded by sort of Watford, Brentford, and QPR, but my grandma lived in Bournemouth. So that's where we spent our holidays. My dad grew up there, and that's where we spent our holidays. And my dad took me to my first game at Dean Court, and it's been a love affair ever since. So yeah, I've been here for a long time, but I do get to go back now and again. I'm also involved on the media side of things at the moment. I'm a play-by-play and color broadcaster for the USL League One, USL Championship, do some NWSL occasionally as well, and I do all the home games for the Greenville Triumph in USL League One. So that's a little bit most of my history, I would say, on the Bournemouth side of things.
Yes, and I wrote you down already as a Bournemouth. I have like a little black book of people who support each club, so I can reach out to them whenever we play each other. So truly be prepared for me to hit you up every single time. You're going to be the first person I go to. So get used to being getting sick of us, and we do a lot of different show offerings, and so we're a big fan of especially teams like Bournemouth, Brentford, the teams in. Yes, we are a city club. You would think that we would enjoy talking to United and Liverpool and all those people, and no, it's just right. There's enough of them. They get enough attention. We get enough attention there, and especially with me being American, there's still so much in the world of football that I have to learn, and that's why I do all of these series during the summer, our content season, because this is a great chance for me to learn and truly also just connect with people who have, like you, have been in love with a football club for basically the length of my entire life. And so this is like a really cool thing to, because this, I know I'm going to get a lesson, and this is great and this is fantastic. So yeah, truly, thank you.
Just here to spread the cherries gospel, Crunk. That's it.
Right, exactly. The let's prop up the cherries. So let's get to the first category. So it's kits.
Sure.
The reason I love kind of kits in football fashion, so this is a great way to kind of sneak it into a show. But let's start with the home kits, and I have a question before we get to the grades. Is it a black kit with red stripes, or is it a red kit with black stripes?
Now, traditionally, going back, we modeled ourselves after AC Milan. So I would say normally back in the day, the stripes were evenly distributed. One of the knocks on this kit this year was that there was more black than red. Originally we were red and white, so red was our original color. Black sort of came along throughout the history. So I'd like to say it's red with some extra black on it this year, but it was a decent offer this year after a few weird kits over the last few years, which you guys can just do a little kit search. We had some zigzags and we had some thinner stripes, and this was about as close as we've got. Like I said, I wish the red stripes, I think I wasn't alone in this opinion, that the red stripes were a little thicker than the black stripes. But I've seen some rumors that there was somebody that floated a photo of what allegedly maybe our kit for next season with thicker stripes and even red and black even stripes. So we'll see if that actually happens. But 2018-19 was the last time we had a really sort of legendary home kit. The ones over the last few years since we've been in the Premier League have been a bit divisive here and there. But I would give this year's home kit a B. I think it was a decent effort. We got back to a little more traditional stripage, as we'll call it. I think everybody wanted a little more red than black.
Yeah, I feel like this is like a modern take on the traditional version of it, and that's why the little black and it makes it kind of pop a little bit more. Yeah, I'm looking at last year's kit. It looks like electricity. That was
a little
wild.
Different. It was a little different.
That's a nice.
Yeah, you can't do plain old stripes. Yes. You can't do plain old stripes every year. So I understand going away from it a little bit, but then I think you have to go back to it now and again just to keep the old school fans happy.
Yes, and B. That's good. I'm going to agree with you. That's a B. Okay, this away kit though, blue, light blue, wavy. The sleeves are kind of different. They don't embrace the pattern. It looks like a waves. Is that what that is? Am I correct?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was because obviously we're on the beach. We're on the south coast of England, so they used a bit of the beach and a bit of the pier, and I'm more of a fan. My son actually bought this kit, and I was more of a fan of it in person. But I was looking back today just to jog my memory of some of the kits we've had over the last few years, and it seemed like we'd had too many sort of tealish. It's not really a teal, but it's sort of a blue-green seafoam color. We've had a few too many of those. I actually have a training kit from a couple of years back, and as well as a third kit that was similar. So it seemed like we'd had a few too many of those. It wasn't as many as I thought in my head. So I gave our away kit this year a C. But as I said, in person, it does look a lot better than it does just in pictures on a computer. But I thought it was a little lazy, but it was okay.
The in-person thing is huge,
especially for sure.
in the city spectrum. It was the away kit. Our away kit had to be worn by the players for a lot of them to fall for it because of the white and the orange. A lot of them were like, it looks too much like United. I don't like collars on kits. And I was telling them, no,
I hear you.
It's a beautiful kit. It's kind of classic, a little nod to modern. You can wear it on the pitch. You can wear it out and about in the club if you wear it, if you know how to dress yourself well enough. Yeah, I was a big fan of the kit, and once people saw other players on it, they were like, all right, cool, I'm down with that.
Yeah, the rival color thing is always interesting. I have a good friend of mine for decades now, who's a Spurs fan, and he's still upset of the red of the A1A sponsor that they've had on their kit for a few years now. And I'm not sure if he refuses to buy the kit because it has the red on it, but it was a bit of a mistake, I think, in the first place.
I love that.
But if somebody's throwing money at you to put their name on a shirt, it's got to be red. I guess you're gonna have to deal with it.
And that's what Levy's trying to tell him. He's just like, hey, you guys get over it. You're a version for red. It is kind of crazy though, because I guess I never really thought about that. That's fantastic. I'm gonna now pick on my Tottenham friends about that now. I'm gonna see how.
I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I think of Tottenham as being a white club, obviously. When it comes to colors, but which every club has a white kit, but I can't imagine Everton, for example, ever having red on their kit, or Man City ever having sky blue on their kit. So I get his point, but it's the sponsor at least, not a design put in there by the club, because that would be scandalous.
Okay, and so the third kit, which you're rocking right now, I'm fan of it. Yes, I'm a fan of it. It's a little edgy. I like the colors. I personally, I guess it just shows my knowledge to Bournemouth. I wouldn't tie this color combination to Bournemouth. Is this something I'm unaware of?
It is. So it's what it is a sort of an updated version of one of our legendary away kits. I know we've had a few legendary kits. There was a royal blue and black stripes, and there's been a green and black stripes, and then over the last few years they've kind of sold them in the shop, but they've never used an updated version. And then this year this was the third kit from, I can't remember the year, I'd have to look it up, but it was sponsored by yellow buses, which in Bournemouth the public buses were all yellow back in the day. I don't think they are as much anymore, but they were sort of an iconic logo.
1997. 98.
Okay. Yeah, they were an iconic
or 96,
sort of local,
97. Yeah.
Iconic local company that sponsored the jerseys, and it was this split. It was a much more of a straight line split than this one with the fancy bits on it. So this was the first kit where I bought. I think on the first day they got it in the store, so I have to give it an A+ because this was one of my favorite kits back in the day, and it's probably my favorite away / third kit since 2014-15. We had a white gold effort that was really sharp. And gold sort of snuck into our logo a little bit here and there over the years. It's sort of been our third color on occasion to go along with the red and black, and it's kind of popped because of that, because it's such in contrast to those two colors. So yeah, I love this kit, and it's certainly one of my favorite ones I own of Bournemouth.
So for a couple of years, I'm looking at the Bournemouth kits now. You were sponsored by Exchange Mart from 1992 to 1994.
Exchange Mart, yes.
Those kits, that home one, the crazy red like V's, I would rock that. Yes, I would rock that. I actually really like that.
Yeah, those are hard to find now. They did bring them back. I think that was one of the ones they brought back over the last few years as sort of a leisure kit that they just sold at the store but never wore. And this is the first one they've brought back that they've actually. And I hope it continues that, maybe not every year, but every 3 years or so we bring back maybe an updated version of the pizza. When they call it the pizza kicks, it looks like pizza. On the we had one which was an awful version of that one, which was sort of green and purple, and but people, it's just one of those ones that stood out. And so hopefully they keep doing it. We'll see.
I feel like that away one, that you were talking about, it was a sign of the times, the color combination, because that was kind of in everything. So I do love this one. Good. And I agree. Very big fan of that kit.
The only problem is, and I have a friend that does this to me too. He thinks it's black when it's actually navy, and of course you get the black and the yellow, and people think Watford, which with us know a bit about our recent history, have been a big rival of ours before we came up to the Premier League, and we pipped them to the title back in 2014-15 when we came up. So some people think it looks a little Watfordish, but it is navy. It is not black. I will have to remind everybody out there.
Well, thank you, and I'm happy I didn't say anything because
there you go.
Watford, only thing City tends to beat them down, so them coming to the Premier League would be a nice welcome because we run the score up on them But Bournemouth, you guys kind of made trouble for us. So I mean, at least
we
you get for
gave
more
you a little bit
entertaining
of a run
football.
this year. We
Yes,
did.
yes, yes.
The only Premier League game I've been to so far for Bournemouth was against Man City.
I know.
I want to say it was our second or third season when we came up. It was only 2-0. I think it was 2-0 at home. It was a close one. It was the game that Jesus broke his foot and Gabriel Jesus broke his foot.
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
I most remember it for.
Let's talk about your manager, current one,
Oh, man.
Andoni Iraola Sagana. Congratulations on joining the whole Spanish manager club. May it be full of joy and success. So he recently signed an extension, actually, to 2026, which means he's doing something right, correct?
Oh, man.
So Devonport, please tell me what you think of your manager and the job he's done at Bournemouth.
You have to give it. I'm not going to give him an A+ because obviously we didn't. I wanted to. If we'd made the top 10, I think I may have given him an A+. But you have to give him an A. It was obviously a bit of a controversial decision to bring him in when we did after Gary O'Neill kept us up. O'Neill, not known for sexy football, but did very well with Wolves, and all of us Bournemouth fans were glad to see that. But Iraola was out there, and our management team obviously had an eye on him for a while. Once he became available, it was just do whatever they could to get him in. Took him, for those that obviously followed the season since the start of the campaign, we took a little while to get going. Then we only had 6 points and 1 win through 11 games, and that was through early November. But then the team started to figure it out, and I mean, since then it's been insane. I think only the top 4 in Chelsea have taken more points since that terrible start to the season. And he plays very brave, exciting football. We used to get frustrated the first few years because we just parked the bus against the bigger teams, didn't want to try and knock it around. And this year he's just come out and we played so well against the big six. There was obviously a couple of heavy defeats, but it's just great to see us playing pressing football and counter-attacking stuff. And he hasn't even had his manager. He was trying to bring his assistant manager with him, Inigo Perez, who was such a big influence. I mean, he played with him and then coached with him at Rayo Vallecano, but he couldn't get a work permit. So he was stuck back in Spain. And then in February, Rayo fired the manager and brought in Perez. So he never ended up getting to join his buddy. But no, it's been a great season under Andoni. Obviously, was one of the candidates for manager of the year. I'm not sure if he'll win it, but we'll see if he gets enough votes. But no, spectacular season, and looking forward to what he brings next year. He only signed a 2-year deal, as you mentioned, so the extension, even though it was only for 1 year. And listen, we as Bournemouth fans, we understand that if he has a little too much success, that he could well end up elsewhere. Thus, with just the 1-year deal for now. We'll see what next season brings. But no, exciting times under Andoni Iraola for sure.
Watching you play, I enjoy watching Bournemouth, Brentford, Wolves. If City aren't playing, those are about the 3 teams that I'll watch. Fulham, those I like. I try to stay very far away from the top 6 and stuff like that because I end up just hate watching them, and also
I get it.
And with your new manager, he, like you said, you play attractive football now, and yes. The technical isn't all there with all the players, but it's the thought, it's the play. There's always energy. That's what I love about Bournemouth. You're still Bournemouth, so y'all are gonna come. Y'all are gonna bang. There's gonna be some physicality in your matches. So it's always an entertaining watch, and that's what I just very much enjoy about Bournemouth. And it's good to see that you're playing well, because I was not moved by Gary O'Neill. I did not like it. I didn't like seeing the camera turn to him, because he was one of the few managers that I watched, and he was doing a good job. He was doing a job. He was keeping you guys in the Premier League, but he never seemed like he knew quite what was going on. He seemed like he was handling what was going on, but there never seemed to be like a progressive thought coming from him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when Scott Parker left and he kind of got shoved into the job, and he'd never been a head coach at this level before. And it took him, you could tell there was some weird substitutions, and again, it was just playing very conservatively, and we were all just like, well, if we're gonna go down, let's just go down throwing everything at it. And a lot of the games against the Big Six, and we obviously had that heavy defeat against Liverpool that we don't want to mention a couple of years ago, but it was just one of those, it was one of those things. Let's just at least go down trying to do something than just sitting back and clearing it down the field, not even trying to play football against these sides. So that's one of the biggest things that Andoni's done this year, is given us some confidence that we can at least compete with everybody in the Big Six. Obviously, we haven't done it much against your lot over the years, but everybody else, I think we've beaten everybody else now except Man City. So yeah, exciting times for Andoni coming up this year, and obviously he dealt with some injury problems this year throughout the year. We didn't have Tyler Adams for a long time, who was such a big off-season signing. But Ryan Christie and Lewis Cook stepped into that role, the 6-8 role, superbly. And we had a ton of injuries. Just Sinisterra out for a while as well, and Tavernier out for a while, and at the back as well. Senesi was out for a bit. Only Zabani was the only one that really stuck around for almost every game. I think he just missed the one towards the end of the year. But no, I think everybody's super excited to see what we do this year. The loss of Lloyd Kelly is going to hurt a little bit. We can get to more of that with the squad stuff in a minute here.
And we can get right into it, because I completely forgot y'all got Tyler Adams. That's insane. Wow.
He did. No. Because of Captain America, and the brief moments he did have on the field for us before he hurt his hamstring and then had a back injury as a result of that. But yeah, it looks so solid. We're super excited to have him next year. Just really shore up the middle of the park.
Dominic Solanke, looking at the squad, he led the team offensively with 19 goals, 3 assists, 37 starts with over 3,300 minutes. Was the workhorse for that. But when you kind of get down to it, it was a huge drop off when he go to his teammates in minutes and in offensive output. You mentioned injuries being kind of a problem. It was by committee, Semenyo, Kluivert, they were trying to help with the minutes that they had. Who I feel should be disappointed in themselves this season. And I checked his age, and I was like, oh, he's 27? Philip Billing. The dude, when I watch him, he kind of pisses me off. And I feel like he plays with an air of arrogance that I don't feel like is deserved when he plays. He trots a lot. He makes soft passes a lot. And I'm just like, bro, you should be way more locked in. He had 2 goals and 2 assists. I don't think that's great.
Yeah, he didn't see much of the pitch second half of the season. It's one of those guys that he's very much an enigma, right? I don't think he really fits into Andoni's pressing system. Scored, some big goals for us for sure, including setting up Kiefer Moore for the goal that brought us back up 2 years ago. So he'll always have a soft spot in every Cherry supporters' hearts, but I think a lot of people will assume that he will not be here next season. Solanke stepped up his game to another level this year. Finishing was great. Just such a strong presence at the 9 spot. He even played, drop a little further back occasionally when Unes Enar came in. And I think the opinion on Solanke is that if we get an offer that is worthy of him departing, that he may depart this offseason. But obviously nobody would complain if he stuck around. He's really the talisman of this team. Scored so many important goals this year. Should have had one. Should have had one yesterday. Missed the sitter with his left foot late on in that one. But yeah, no, Don. We'll see what happens with Don. There's been obviously conflicting views on what he should be valued at. But listen, scoring number 9s, especially with his size and heading ability, physicality, finishing ability, they're not going to come cheap. So we'll see if somebody ends up putting in a silly offer. Maybe West Ham, Newcastle, obviously with the Eddie Howe connection. That's where Lloyd Kelly appears to be heading. Sad to lose him, especially on a free. But he was a trooper for this club. Had his injury problems, but I think he'll fit nicely in there in Newcastle. But no, the squad had a great year. We were talking about some of when the Player of the Year awards were coming up. I couldn't even decide who to pick because Solanke was obviously solid on the offensive side of things, but Christie and Cook, workhorses at the 6 of the defensive midfielder spots. Kluivert what a year he had coming in the first year. And then Adam Smith, who for a lot of Bournemouth fans was just sort of a throwaway fullback that was past his prime, and one of our best players this season, without a doubt, stepped up amazingly. Didn't miss many games at all. We had Max Aarons come in. He got hurt. We had some injury problems at the fullback spot, and he can play either side. Veteran leader. And you mentioned Tyler Adams. The goalkeeping spot was a bit of a question. That was really the only sort of question mark, and obviously the depth at certain positions. But I gave our squad a B+ this year for the performance and almost getting us into that top half.
That's not bad at all. So when you mentioned conflicting prices for Solanke, I assume it's what Bournemouth is valuing him and what other people are valuing him. What are both of those prices?
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's Bournemouth fans that will say we should be getting 60 million for him. There's other Bournemouth fans that will say 40.
No,
there's others that will say 40 is reasonable. He's at a prime age. He's not young, but he's got the experience. And I think if they got an
25. Yep.
If they got an offer at the top end of that, I think he'd certainly be gone. We're trying to build a new stadium. That big chunk of change would certainly help us get that goal going. We've seen renderings. We've got trying to finish our training facility right now as well, which is looking really good. That should be done. Hopefully, I think going into the end, we're using it now, but not fully. So hopefully, going into next season, that should pretty much be done. But yeah, I think if they get an offer that we couldn't refuse, I don't think anybody would be sad if Dom left. He's served this club superbly, and I think we'd be smart to take the good offer if we got one.
Yes, you don't want to be like Crystal Palace, where. Well, I mean, obviously, I think they're going to learn from the lesson. They're going to get rid of Eze and Olise in time, but you can definitely hold on to a player for entirely too long. Ivan Toney, he's 28, and they're valuing him anywhere between $70 to $100 million. Solanke's a couple of years younger, and I think I would trust him just as much as I would trust Ivan Toney as my striker. So I think, 60 million is good, especially for the teams that are going to want him. I don't think you should be asking for much less, if anything. Maybe 50 with a bunch of incentives, but that's about the lowest I would go for him because he's so important to your club. Yeah,
and obviously him and Tony. Tony didn't obviously have a great season. Well, we've got the off the field stuff as well.
Yes,
the England squad announcement will be coming up soon, and it doesn't seem like Dom's going to make it over Tony, but there are a lot of people that think he should.
What's the financial situation for Bournemouth looking like? Do you know? Are you fine?
Yeah, I think we obviously just got bought over the last couple of years by American Foley, Bill Foley, who owns the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and just bought Hibernian recently. Owns Lorient in France. Seems to have a lot of cash to throw around, but obviously he's done a great job with the Golden Knights. We've seen the success they've had there since he's taken over. A wage bill is obviously reasonable, but nothing compared to the top 6 in the league. But obviously our revenue from tickets isn't great either. But obviously that is such a small percentage of what these clubs get these days when you compare what they're getting from the TV deal. So I think he's being careful. And I think that's another reason. I think if the offer for Solanke did come in, it would be a smart business move as well. Reinvest some of it and put some of it into the new ground and some of it into the training ground. And I think everybody's pretty confident. And listen, there's going to be people that will tickets go up next year. Perhaps there's been, the premier level of tickets has been a recurring issue within some fans' discussion groups this year, about the amount of money being spent on that versus other things, and turning it into more of a business. But when he came in, Foley and Jim Favola, who's his business guy, they said that there was just not enough revenue being brought in from the Premier seat side of things, the hospitality side of things. So they made a bunch of changes in that regard, and tickets were still very reasonable compared to what some of the other clubs were charging. So I don't think fans will be too upset if they raise the ticket prices a little bit. But we've been pretty frugal. We obviously brought some players in last year, but we also sold a bunch of players as well. So I think the net was pretty good. I don't think there's any real worry about the monetary side of things, and he's still buying clubs, so he can't be too bad. He can't be too poorly off. So unfortunately, Lorient got relegated yesterday on the last day of the season from League One, which is going to hurt. It was on a crazy situation too. They were tied, and I think it came down to away goals in the matches between the two sides. Yeah, it was insane. So it was a bit sad to see Lorient go down. But hopefully we continue to have a good relationship with them. Dango Ouattara came over from them and played a role. He was on my fantasy team this year and had enough starts that I could use him at defense, midfield, or attack. So he was a very useful utility tool to have this year. So hopefully Lorient bounce back. But yeah, no, I think we're okay on the money side of things. Obviously, our history, for those that know our history, we had points deducted for going bankrupt and almost, went out of existence. So I think we're all pretty sort of, balanced when it comes to looking at the finances side of things. It's been a lot worse going back in our history. So I think we got, obviously the size of the stadium has been a big part of that, right? Let's not build too big of a stadium just in case, we go down 20, 25 has been the discussion. So maybe 30 max. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get some progress with that in the off season. We'll see.
Well, let's talk about the Bournemouth fan base, the supporter base a little bit. Because I'll tell you a little bit about cities. I'm blessed. I know and connect and chat with pretty level-headed, calm people in the city community, and by doing our show, I'm tapped in with other city content community people and I enjoy their perspectives. There are a lot of city fans who, for the most part, only know success. I originally found out and became a city fan because I was a kid in like 2002, and I found out there was another team in the Division 2 named Manchester City because of FIFA. I was playing with a friend, and that was kind of my first love. I then started playing rugby, and I was just like all into just European sports from there.
All right. I'm a rugby guy. I'm a rugby guy too. That's my original sport. So there you go.
Nice. Second row, I'd also play number 8 if the team we were playing was a little more like finesse, because then I could just come through and just run people over because I'm a
nice.
Pretty tall, big dude. So yeah, and then about 2012 was when I was able to do my own thing and dive all in and start affording my own things, I guess, buy my own kits. And so naturally, once you're buying more kits, you're a little more tapped in. When really it was watching it on TV became slightly easier. It was still incredibly difficult. It was pretty difficult. Yeah, I'm sure you know.
Yes.
It's just gotten easier and better, and it's been nice being a part of this community. The supporters, I'm blessed. I know a lot of good ones, great people. But yeah, a lot of success has spoiled some of these people, and there are a lot of no face accounts. Obviously, Twitter is like a hellhole, so naturally those the more aggressive accounts get the most attention. So I try not to get too absorbed into that. But how are the Bournemouth supporters? I mean, I assume you guys are some pretty well-managed people, right?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have the new fans that have just come on board since we've made our move to the Premier League nearly 10 years ago now. But I think the old school fans, there's some of that are torn that still want it to be, little old Bournemouth, and we only want to pay this much for tickets, and we want to be able to have the access to the players. But in reality, that those days are long gone. If we want to take that next step, we've got to move on as a club. And some people have come around. Again, Bill Foley, I think he does a good job of bridging both sides of that and respecting the history of the club, yet trying to move us forward, especially with the stadium size of things, because we don't even own our stadium at the moment, which is part of the problem. We sold it back. We sold it and leased it back when we were having our financial troubles a while ago. So obviously the owner of that company understands, we want to leave at some point, but obviously they understand if we just leave the stadium and don't have a lease anymore, they're just going to be left with an empty stadium. So we'll see what ends up happening. And they're looking to build close by. The stadium is in a park, so we're looking to move once the training ground moves to the new training ground. We're going to hopefully build the stadium where the current training ground is. But I think there were some fans at the start of this year that were upset about the decision to sack O'Neill and bring in Areola. But obviously they have all come around since then. We've had some, the management, we brought in Scott Parker, and that was a bit of a disaster. Eddie Howe, is obviously a legend at this club. And when he left, everybody was just wondering if we were going to end up being, the next Bolton. But we've recovered nicely. And I think most of our fans are pretty level-headed and understand that, the longer we hang around in the Premier League and the longer we get a legacy out of this visit to the heights of where we are now, because obviously this is a club that, wasn't even in the Championship for very long before we came up to the Premier League. I think we only had 3 or 4 seasons total in the Championship before making the jump to the Premier League. So the fans that have been around since the days of handing around buckets in Bournemouth Town Centre to play the players' wages, I think most of them are still on cloud nine where we are right now, and most of them are pretty level-headed. There's the ones that the Johnny come late is, what have you done for us lately? And the Areola thing, when we got off that rough start, we're panicking, and understandably, but you had to give him time, and we knew it was a big change in system, and obviously that patience has paid off. So no, we're a pretty good fan group, especially the ones over here in the US. That we've been growing the fan group here. Obviously, we're coming over here to play this summer for the first time since our second year in the Premier League. I think we were in Philly the first year, and then we went to Minnesota and Chicago the second year. Obviously, now with our owners being American, last year it was 2. They just bought the club, so there wasn't enough time to get us here. I think we went to Spain instead. But no, most of the still a good core group of people that were around when the club was tiny, that remember the down days and there's anything, and just you just got to hope we don't end up like Bolton or a team like that. So I think with Foley coming in and managing as well business wise, that we should be all right.
I think so. I hope you won't end up like Bolton. I don't think you'll end up like Bolton, but obviously you never know. But all this American money, it's a good sign.
Yeah, and Bill's very heavily involved. He's always talking about this, and I don't know how long I'm going to be around, he says. So he's always around the club, especially because Vegas lost early in the playoffs. So he's been over quite a bit, trying to get the stadium situation sorted out, I think, and obviously getting the extension done with Andoni. I think some fans would love to have seen it be more than 1 year, but he's never, I think in his managerial history, he's never signed really more than a 1 or 2 year deal. That's just kind of the guy he is. He understands you want to keep your options open. I mean, we saw what happened with De Zerbi here at Brighton, and some of the big jobs that are out there right now that he perhaps saw and said, "Hey, maybe one of these big jobs could be for me and make the next step up from Brighton." What a job he did there! Until the second half of this year, they fell off a bit, but no, I think I give our fan base a solid B. I think with every team, there's the few idiots around that will jump on Twitter and piss people off. But I think we're a pretty decent group for the most part. Very, very, very reasonable.
Good. Great. I'd like to hear that about that. Okay, well, we'll end here with the final look at the season as a whole. Like you said, so close to getting the top 10. Crystal Palace, Chelsea, they made a mad dash at the end of the season.
They did.
Just 1 point off, honestly, of Crystal Palace with 49 points. You sit in 12th. That's not bad. I mean, like you said, highest point total. What do you think on the team's job this season?
I mean, as a Bournemouth fan, right? Your job is always, especially after last year, where we squeaked. I think everybody just wants to stick around in the Premier League as long as we can. That goal was accomplished, obviously, very early. So I think we'd have to give the season. I want to give it an A minus. I can't quite give it an A just because we didn't get to that top 10, which would have been an amazing accomplishment, especially as how we started the season. Again, as I mentioned, some of the business decisions and obviously as coming from as small of a club as we have been, some people have disliked on that side of things some of the decisions made. But they said the training ground's coming along, the stadium's coming along. As mentioned, Bill Foley is doing a great job. I don't think anybody would really, and again, once the season ticket prices come out, some people might disagree, but I think it'll certainly be in line with what everybody else is doing, in the middle of the pack there. I don't think we're going to be down the bottom. I don't think we're going to be in the top 10 either, but somewhere in the middle of the pack, I think would keep everybody happy. So, no, yeah, great season, and looking forward to what next year brings. Hopefully a little more health and perhaps a push for Europe. I mean, it was, talks about pushing for Europe only a month ago. We struggled down the stretch a little bit to finish where we did, but I don't think anybody could say it was anything less than an A- for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and we can definitely talk about it because you're going to be better than Bournemouth next season. Crystal Palace, they could fall off with the moves that they make. Who they could potentially lose. What will West Ham look like without possibly Paqueta, and maybe the players that they're going to lose? Will United continue to fall off of a cliff? We don't know. It's going to be a very fun season next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about it, there's not many other teams I would rather be a fan of. I think at this point, obviously, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool are doing fine, but everybody else seems to have, their issues. Villa's been great. You've got to give them credit for what they did this year, but there are certainly teams that have to be worried about. Brentford really struggled the second half. Brighton barely held on, I think, to 11th or whatever they were. Palace, as you mentioned, what a streak to the end of the season, but they could lose their two best guys for some serious money. I'm very happy with where we are right now. I think every Bournemouth fan goes into every season saying, "Oh, we just need to stay up," and anything more than that. I think next year will be the first year where the goals maybe a little more, accept more than that for a lot of people. I think you just got to take it sort of month by month and see how we start, and as long as we keep creeping closer to 40 every month we go along, and then we'll see where we are in February, March, and give Europe or top 10 a shot.
I love it. Let's go. Oh, man. Well, truly, thank you. Shady Gang, give it up for Ross. Yeah. Please let our listeners know where they can find you on social media and pay attention to the things that you do.
I'm on Twitter at that Ross bloke. I think I'm more active on there than I am on the Instagram. But obviously, as I mentioned, you can always find me doing. Usually, I have a rare weekend off this weekend, but you can usually find me on ESPN Plus doing either color for the Greenville Triumph games or play-by-play. I just did Tormenta against Chattanooga this past weekend. I do get to dabble in the play-by-play side of things. And I did NWSL the week before and US Open Cup.
Nice.
So I'm always on ESPN Plus normally somewhere, or Golazo Network. Now I know I've got a Golazo game coming up, I think early in June 2nd perhaps is my next one. So it's great to have the games on Golazo, and then we got games on ESPN2 as well. I'm not sure they'll let me near the cable networks anytime soon. But I enjoy my role, and I have great fun doing it. And I've been doing it since the start of League One back in 2019. So it's been a great gig to have. I get to talk about soccer and watch games and get paid for it. So it doesn't get much better than that.
Right? I can't wait to watch a game and then all of a sudden be like, oh, I know that voice.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, let's go.
I have friends' kids that do that. They put the games on and like, is that Ross on the TV? And then, they have to explain to them that yes, that is him. The same guy he just stood next to in 95 degrees at a softball field earlier in the day.
Right.
So my daughter plays travel softball, so I'm normally playing out in the sun for 8 hours and then jumping into a freezing cold studio for 4 hours. It's a nice little contrast. It's like jumping in the pool after the jacuzzi down here in South Florida.
It's a good old South Florida. Ooh, shout out to you. Well, Shady Gang, we will be back with a new episode shortly, as it is content season, dropping an episode every other day. Episode. We're just gonna bring you another most
love it
guest. So we will see you soon, and the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.